Welcome to episode 123 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Canny. So the new year offers all of us a blank slate. And it's a great time to review what's happened in 2023 and look forward to 2024. The common sense about this is that when we set New Year's resolutions, we are utilizing a very important concept called self-efficacy, which means that by virtue of aspiring to a goal and following through on it, we have a sense of control over what's happening in our life. And I think we can all question whether any of us really have control, but that's kind of what most people think about when it comes to resolutions. Before we get into keeping resolutions, Forbes did some research December of 2023 that I thought you might find interesting. The survey found that overall 45% of respondents noted an improvement in mental health as one of their top New Year's resolutions, compared to 39% who said improved fitness, or 37% who wanted to lose weight, and 33% who cited improved diet. And that survey was done on December 19th, 2023. Those numbers climb even higher when looking at the proportion of younger respondents who are prioritizing their mental well-being in the new year. Half of those between the ages of 18 and 25, which are basically Gen Zers, and 49% of those between the ages of 26 and 41, who are millennials, cited improved mental health as a top resolution. That compared to 33% of 18 to 25-year-olds and 30% of 26 to 41-year-olds who listed improved diet as a top goal. I think this survey finds and suggests a cultural shift in what Americans value when it comes to wellness, and they're pushing back against the idea that health is measured simply by the number on the scale. That's terrific. I love hearing that. And mental health care has also dramatically expanded since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which I think we all know, and there's online therapy providers and other virtual mental health care services giving people the opportunity to connect with a therapist from the comfort and convenience of their home. This is reflected in the Forbes survey findings, with 10% of the respondents sharing intentions of using an online therapy provider like BetterHelp, TalkSpace, or Cerebral. I use BetterUp myself to help stick to their New Year's resolutions, while 17% said they plan to use a meditation app, which I also use. So there you go. So how can we help keep these resolutions when there's so much at stake, like our mental health? And so research suggests that only 9% of Americans that make resolutions complete them, and goes on to show that 23% of people quit their resolution by the end of the first week, and 43% quit by the end of January.
Wow!
So the numbers aren't too good about this. And so, why does this happen, right? So here's one thought about that. When we set a resolution, begin to follow through on it, we trigger a very powerful neurohormone in the brain called dopamine. And dopamine helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers and regulates our emotional responses. Though dopamine levels are high as we set out to accomplish our resolution, they eventually drop. And it's this drop that maybe makes us quit. Another thought is that we don't have a structure in place to help us keep motivated. The behavior we are engaging in will tend to trail off, and then breaking a resolution can cause some of us to doubt ourselves and ultimately stop working towards any goals. I thought it might be good to enlist the help of some of our notable experts to see what they think about resolutions and keeping them. You may remember last year about this time we did episode 51 and looked at the differences between intentions, resolutions, and goals. And it's good to review that again, and here's what we said. An intention is something you want to manifest in your life, or some guiding principle that you want to live by. While resolutions are hard and fast goals that are either achieved or broken, intentions are broader ideas. Then what's the difference, I ask, between an intention and a goal? A goal describes what you want to do in the future. Its focus is on external accomplishments and is something you can clearly check off a list, like go rock climbing, learn to make tiramisu. An intention describes how you want to feel. Its focus is internal, on your relationship with yourself. In our search, we also found this take interesting. Resolutions seem to ask us to be perfect, something we can never achieve. So resolutions seem to focus only on the outcome, not the journey. In setting an intention, you resolve that you're already enough, so you move forward without having an attachment to the outcome. It's more about the journey. In that same episode, we brought help from Jay Shetty, who said, by having intention isn't enough. It needs to permeate our behavior, and we need to consider the work behind the want so we avoid wishful manifestations. He adds that perhaps they were a should instead of a want, and we can use the why ladder to better understand those underlying motivations. And I've got a link to the show in the show notes if you want to learn more about the why ladder, but it's basically you make a statement and you say, oh, well, why do you think that? And then you say another statement and then you say, why do you think that? And you do that for 5 whys, and you get to kind of the bottom of things using that approach. You might also remember we did some episodes about habits based on the James Clear book in episode 70, and his book was Atomic Habits. Perhaps we can look at a resolution as a new habit. I had the question, perhaps we can look at a resolution as a new habit. So here are some takeaways from James Clear. Habits are not a finish line to be crossed. They're a lifestyle to be lived. They're something to stick by, day in and day out. And when it comes to New Year's resolution, he says, we can reframe our thought process to focus on the identity you want to build instead of the outcome. This small shift will help you form lasting habits within your daily routine all year long, allowing you to build a new normal, a new lifestyle, and sustainable, non-threatening change. So in other words, he's saying, rather than focus on the outcome that you want for next year, focus on the identity that you'd like to build. So here's an example he gave. The goal is not to read 40 books this year, which might be a New Year's resolution you set. The goal is to become a reader, to develop that identity. The goal is not to run a marathon this year, which might be a New Year's resolution. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to lose 40 pounds. The goal is to become the type of person who doesn't miss workouts and to be the person that just shows up. That was an awesome example he gave in the book and we had in the episode. And he says the more we organize our habits around an identity rather than an outcome, the more that we'll see the value in just sticking with it, even if it's a small thing. I also wanted to check out Mel Robbins and what she had to say about resolutions, and probably no surprise, she says we don't need resolutions. She goes on to say that when we force ourselves to think within a year's time frame, it keeps us from thinking bigger. So she says dream a decade in advance. I gotta admit, I'm not quite ready for a decade forward. You know, I see myself working more in just the present in today. But I did like when she said this. It's tempting to look at change and make it complex. What if we made it simpler for ourselves and do more of the things that work? Stop doing the things that don't. So she has this stop start, continue approach. This might help us do the things that really speak to us. You also know I had to check with Brené Brown on this.
Oh, yeah.
And in an article for O Magazine, she said this, and it was 2022, but I think it's still very relevant going into 2024. A few years ago, I noticed in my research that wholehearted people, my term for men and women with the courage to be vulnerable and live their lives all in, shared something else too. They goofed off. They spent time doing things that to me seemed frivolous, like gardening and reading. I couldn't really wrap my head around it. Were they slackers? Then one day, while I watched my kids jump on the trampoline in our backyard, it hit me. Wholehearted adults play. I was really struck by this when I read that. Play? Do I play? Do I play enough? What is play anyway? And the article went on to say this. She said that researcher Stuart Brown, MD, describes play as time spent without purpose. And like Brené, this sounds more like the definition of an anxiety attack. And she said this, which I think we all can relate to. I feel behind if I'm not using every last moment to be productive. Whether that means working, cleaning the house, or taking my son to baseball practice. But I can't ignore what the research, mine and others, tells us. Play, doing things just because they're fun and not because they'll help achieve a goal, is vital in human development. Brown believes that play is at the core of creativity and innovation. Play can mean snorkeling, scrapbooking, or solving crossword puzzles. It's anything that makes us lose track of time and self-consciousness, creating the clearing where ideas are born. Which means it's a mistake to restrict play to vacations. Here's the idea she gave in the article. Create a playlist. Write down 3 activities you could do for hours on end. Hers were reading, editing photos on her computer, and playing ping pong with her family. What would be yours? For me, everything I was thinking about tied to a goal. And I can't shake it. So I spent New Year's Day doing nothing goal-oriented. I took the day off and just watched football games. I was so tempted to work on my podcast, my marketing plan, make cards for the podcast. And I had the question, was that play? Good question, no? She goes on to say that we need to carve out time on our calendar and adds that even when she's busiest, she schedules unstructured time. She says it's important to protect playtime the way you protect work, church, or PTA meetings. Unstructured time. Again, I'm in the question, what is that anyway? What does that look like for me? And the last thing she says is to play well with others. When her husband and kids made their own playlists, she realized that their usual vacations, which involved sightseeing, weren't really anyone's idea of play. So now they go to places where they can hike, swim, and play cards. Things that make them all their most silly, creative, and free-spirited selves.
Excellent!
Before we end, though, I think I should share what I'm doing in this area about my intentions for 2024. And I'm calling these intentions because they're really about what I want to presence in the year, and they're internal, and they're not a hard yes, I did it, or didn't action. So I think really they are intentions. And in the spirit of Mel Robbins, I took the continue, stop, start approach. So here we go. Continue the journey of healing. not just from corporate life and other leadership roles, but from all the life circumstances that have come my way. This probably comes closest to improving my mental well-being. Continue to share my story as it evolves as authentically as I can in my podcast. Here I am being very vulnerable with you, sharing what my intentions are for 2024. Good way to start the year. Continue to help others find their own voice to lead. Continue to understand and research generational differences as a way to connect to my daughters and with all others. Continue to care for my body with exercise, nutrition, meditation, strength training, and yoga practices. Yes, certainly this becomes a bigger deal as we age. Stop living in the fear of what my family members think of me and what they'll say to me before they die. I know, it's a little heavy. Start thinking of ways to inspire others beyond listening to my podcast and take steps to bring those ideas to reality. So stay tuned, my friends. There's more coming. And, oh yeah, be open to play. How about you? What do you want to continue, start, and stop? And you can feel free, if you want an accountability partner, to send me an email, and all that information is in the show notes. I'd be happy to be your partner to help you to continue, start, and stop some of your intentions. And I looked at these and applied the why ladder. And it came down to my personal brand, where I stated my superpower was caring for others and myself. So this looks pretty aligned with that. And if I ask myself who I need to be for the start and stop intentions, I'd say apply my skills to be the person that's curious, asks questions, and doesn't seek an answer, just insights. I'll need a structure, of course, and these are some of the suggestions I found that can help us along, perhaps. Seek support and help from others. I'll tell you, I've got a team cheering me on, I know for sure. And I think you probably are too. Create a reward system. Oh, I need to do better here. I need to follow through on a reward, like a massage, which I keep visualizing. Oh, that would feel so good. Or a trip to Half Moon Bay to soak in the beach one morning with a trip to the nursery nearby. Oh, maybe take some time to call family and friends. I mean, a real call on the phone, not just texting. And then have compassion for ourselves. No one is perfect. Instead of beating ourselves up, let's take a deep breath. And keep at it. Oh, and one more thing before we end today. I had to look more into the questions I had about being playful. They were just nagging at me. And I found there's a National Institute for Play.
What?
And I think this topic deserves its own episode, so we'll do that next. And we'll look at the question, what is play anyway? Thank you for being here. And I hope you'll join us again to play a little more with us. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us, or join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead. You can also visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated, where you can see videos to go with the episodes. Once you're on YouTube, search Girl Take the Lead. Here are 3 takeaways from today's episode. 1, let's set ourselves up for success in 2024. Let's make sure our intentions, resolutions, or even goals are not shoulds and are really what we want to work at and make happen. 2, start by just showing up and asking ourselves, who do I need to be to make this happen? And 3, what would 2024 look like if we made things simple and more playful? So stay tuned and join us again. Oh, and a shout out to Robin Cartwright, Career Empowerment Coach, for featuring me in her podcast, Unlock Your Block. Please check out episode 7, where Robin and I talk all about leadership and knowing yourself. The link is in the show notes. You'll want to add her podcast to your playlist for sure. Again, thanks for being here. Talk to you soon, and Happy New Year. Bye.